Welcome to Idea to IPO. My name is Rob. I organize Idea to IPO. We've been holding events in Silicon Valley for many, many years. We launched officially on February 1st, 2010. At that time, we had no members and no events on our calendar. At this stage, we have over 1 million members among meetup groups all around the world. We've organized, promoted, and produced over 5,100 events. By any standard, by any measure, we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in the history of Silicon Valley, bar none. Thank you. Thank you for your support. We organize venture capital panels, legal workshops, networking events, and more. We hold an event every day of the week. Check out our schedule at ideatoipo.com. As I mentioned, we launched on February 1st, 2010. What day is it today? It's April 30th. What year is it? It's 2025. So this is our 15th year. It's our 15th anniversary. And we're celebrating with a Costco cake at every one of our events. So there it is right there. So who has a birthday in January, February, March, or April? Many of you. Well, happy birthday. So that cake's for you too, so have some cake later. Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship, support entrepreneurs, build community, and provide value in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. To that end, we provide content that is practical, actionable, and relevant. Stuff you can actually use to succeed as entrepreneurs. We believe in building community because Silicon Valley is a global aspirational ecosystem. It attracts people from all over the world who come here to do great things. Who here is not originally from Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? Who here was born and raised in Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? 7 of you. Well, welcome. Whether you were born and raised here or just arrived last night, it's important for us to provide multiple channels for you to meet people, build relationships, and grow your network. With regard to value, it's important that we provide value at each and every one of our events. Not just value for your money, which is important though, because we know many entrepreneurs are struggling financially. So we make sure our events are free or affordable. And if one of our events has a cover charge and you cannot afford the cover charge for whatever reason, come talk to me. We can work something out. And at most of our speaker events, we make sure that we provide a delicious buffet. Is that a delicious buffet? Come on, is that a delicious buffet? I want to thank Wilmer and Snell for sponsoring that delicious buffet. So let's hear it for Wilmer and Snell. Snell and Wilmer. Let's hear it for Snell and Wilmer.
We got to get the banner made bigger.
More importantly, though, at each and every one of our events, we want to make sure that we provide value for your time, which is your most valuable resource. Anyone here getting any younger? Besides our panel and that young man in the back? So when you invest your valuable time to come to our events, we want to make sure that you maximize your ROI. We have many partners that help us do what we do: law firms, venture capital firms, angel investor groups, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, and lots of other players in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. Tonight, we're grateful to Snell and Wilmer for hosting us once again at this beautiful venue. Is this a beautiful venue? Great. So let's hear it for Roger and Snell and Wilmer. Applause. Roger, would you like to say a few words? Like 5?
Hey, we get paid by the word, so we have to be wordy. Thank you all for coming. How are you all doing tonight? No, seriously, how are you all doing? Excellent. Well, welcome. It's fantastic to have you all here tonight, and hopefully we're going to have a great panel discussion. I just have to pay for dinner with Snell and Wilmer. I'm a partner here. I head up our emerging growth and venture capital practice group. So I deal with companies from inception all the way through IPO. The firm is 600 lawyers, 18 offices across the country, and in every major practice group and practice area that supports startups. I just want to give a quick heads up. You've seen this on your seat. We're starting an AI leadership collective. Anyone here in AI got AI first or AI driven? Please go to the website, take a look at this. It's a peer-to-peer group. It's for CEOs of AI companies. We meet once a month for 4 hours on the second Wednesday of the month for 12 months. And we've got someone that moderates the discussion. It really is an amazing opportunity for entrepreneurs to learn from one another. And then also we've got some workshops coming up to help entrepreneurs do things right from the get-go and develop good funding strategies. So thank you all for coming and looking forward to a great event.
Applause. Some of our other partners are here tonight. I would also like to have them say a few words. Let's hear it for Melissa and Atadon. Applause.
Hi guys, my name is Melissa. I'm with Atadon Technologies. We do IT services, so if anybody here is in need of some IT support that could benefit from that, please come talk to me. Thank you.
By the way, we have 2 raffles tonight. So Melissa is doing a raffle with a grand prize of a $25 Visa card. So please enter. You must be present to win. We'll do the raffle drawing about 8:30 p.m. So next up, we have Yana in New York Life. Applause.
Thank you. My name is Yana Vasilova and I'm with New York Life. I help startups with financial planning, so come see me at my table and let's connect. Also, we have a raffle, so please fill the form and enjoy your evening.
Yeah, Yana's grand prize is a $50 box of See's chocolate. Though our local mission is to support entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley, our global mission is to democratize entrepreneurship and innovation all around the world. To that end, we maintain a robust YouTube channel, youtube.com/idea to IPO. Go check it out. We have tons of videos there. And this rich, valuable content is available on demand, anytime, anywhere, totally free of charge. Our partner in this endeavor is Michael Payne, one of the top professional videographers in Silicon Valley. So let's give it up for Michael.
Hello, everyone. I help people and companies tell their stories, whether it's a company story, product video, instructional video, fundraising, or even events like this one. So if I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Let's see who's in the room. Who here is an early stage entrepreneur? What's the difference between a pizza and an early stage entrepreneur? A pizza can feed a family of 4. Just kidding. Who here is an investor besides our panelists? Paul? Anyway. Who here is an enterprise employee? Who here is a government employee? Who here is a former government employee? Who here is a student or an academic? Who here is a journalist or a media person? Who's here for the delicious buffet? Well, thanks for coming. Here's the schedule for the rest of the evening. Our panel will hold a brilliant, compelling, dynamic, entertaining, and scintillating discussion. Right? Total. At roughly 8 p.m., we'll open up to questions from the audience. We'll end the program at roughly 8:30. Stick around, network, socialize, connect. There will be an after party. More on that later. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to our distinguished moderator, who's doing a selfie.
I mean, following in the footsteps of Sanjeev. Yeah.
You can't beat Sanjeev. He's the selfie king of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
In any case, our distinguished moderator is Roger Rappaport, partner at Snell and Wilmer. So let's give it up for Roger and our panel. Applause.
All righty. Well, great. Thanks, Rob. Let's just go through and do a quick introduction of the panel. So to my left is Melody Poe, a partner at Digital DX Ventures. Next to Melody is Ephraim Lindenbaum, Managing Director of Advanced Ventures. And next to Ephraim is Aya Hamdan, head of health, Plug and Play Ventures. We then have Garrett of Igantis, managing partner at Riverine Ventures. Ella Lee, founding partner at H7 Bio Capital. And last but not least, Alex Efron, senior associate at Telegraph Hill Partners. So I thought we could just start off quickly, run down the line, starting with you, Melody. Just tell us a little about your firm, what you invest in, the stage, and what's your typical check size, and also whether you lead or follow.
Absolutely. So Digital DX Ventures is based in Menlo Park. We are in our fund 2, and we focus on early stage AI and diagnostics. Our investment thesis is we like to invest in products that will help, that are least invasive, least expensive, and more accurate. We look at health conditions that span different types of cancer, sleep disorders, Alzheimer's, women's health, mental health. And as an investor, we write check sizes of 100 to 250 initial, and we follow on with about half of our companies.
Great, thank you. Ephraim.
My name is Ephraim Lindenbaum. I'm the managing director of Advanced Ventures, and I'm a recovering entrepreneur. So I started on your side of the table there. So I think that's helpful. We've been investing since 1999. So we're either pretty good at what we do or gluttons for punishment. We broadly invest across the health tech sector, predominantly in digital health, although we do a fair amount of diagnostics. We do not get into drug development or what we call the wet side of the business. Typically only 510 regulated or non-regulated digital health products.
And what's your typical check size?
Typical check size for us is 1 to 3 million in initial, and then subsequent pro rata of up to 7 to 10.
And do you guys follow or lead? Or
We co-lead and we will follow. It just is dependent on how much we like the deal.
Aya.
Hi, everybody. Testing. You can hear me? Okay. Aya Hamden, Plug and Play, I've learned is a well-recognized name. A lot of folks have been to our events that we host at our HQ in Sunnyvale. But I'll talk about our investment strategy. So in our health vertical, check size is small, 50K, 100K on average. We have funds to where we can invest 1 to 3 million check sizes, reserved mostly for follow-ons. And digital technologies, so that includes tech bio, but not biotech. We will occasionally invest in device companies. We launched a medtech vertical last year, so we're kind of growing our appetite there. And we do not lead, we do not co-lead, but we're extremely active. We write about a check a day. So PitchBook actually ranks us the most active investor globally by number of checks, not by amount of capital that we've invested. And yeah, I think I answered all your questions.
Yeah. And are most of your investments, these companies, in Plug and Play, or they come to you from outside of Plug and Play?
It's really a range. A lot of those, 200 checks a year that we write are net new. And you could say maybe under 5% are follow-on investments into like Series A.
Great. Thank you. Garrett.
Oh, that was a fascinating stat. A check a day. That is memorable, no doubt. We're not that fast. We are an early stage venture capital fund. Riverine Venture started in 2021. We're based up in Sausalito with outposts in the Midwest as well. We invest in 3 categories: molecules, machines, and software. We usually go deep on the wet and the product side of the equation. Most of our companies require regulatory approval in order to be launched on the market, often have robust patent portfolios. We're on to our second fund. First fund is fully deployed. I've had 3 exits out of that. Gauss Surgical got sold to Stryker. We had Circularis acquired by Ginkgo. And then Invitae bought Citizen. Those were the 3 that we had from Fund 1, and we're on to raising our second fund right now.
And what's the typical check size?
1 to 4. We don't really have a typical one. We usually milestone out where the proceeds will go.
And you guys follow on as well?
Yes, lead and follow. We're easy to play with.
All right, Ella.
Hello, we're H7 Bell Capital. We focus on therapeutic. Unlike most of our panelists, we focus on drug discovery, therapeutic, and also medtech. That is mainly about B2B. So we do syndicate investment with a check size from 100K to $1.5 million, and we follow. In addition to the investment arm, we also have a accelerator arm. We run once a year virtual accelerator program, help the startup company to close their current fundraising. And also we have a BD team that specializes to help life science company to license out their pipeline to MNC and the medtech company to build their partnership with hospital and also gain access with physicians.
So you when you guys are looking at therapeutics, are you going in obviously pre-clinic?
So we prefer IND. It need to have some animal data. So IND enabling stage and also occasionally phase 1 stages.
Great, thank you. So Alex.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm Alex from Telegraph Hill Partners. Our fund was founded in 2001. We're based in San Francisco. We're headquartered here, but we have some partners spread across the U.S. Currently investing out of our 5th fund. We exclusively focus on healthcare and life sciences. Pretty much every subsector there, except for therapeutics, unlike Ella here. Generally investing at the growth stage, sometimes early growth, but that could include software to hardware, a lot of life sciences tools and digital health. Generally lead, occasionally co-lead, and I'd say our typical check size is not so typical. It's a pretty big range in our current fund. First checks have ranged from 5 to 35 million.
Yeah, that's pretty good range. So let's just open it up to the panel. You know, I think the topic tonight was what's hot and what's not. So what are some of the most exciting health tech trends that you guys are seeing in the last year or maybe the last couple of years that have gotten your attention or getting investors' attention generally?
Well, I'm going to drop the AI bomb to just start the whole thing off, right? Someone's just got to kick it in. So AI crossed the entire ecosystem, all the way from supporting drug development, all the way into clinical settings, all the way, if you see your PCP, they're using an AI note taker today. So it is making an appearance everywhere. And healthcare is one of the largest industries. There was $17 billion invested in digital health in the United States last year, $25 billion globally from venture. So it's a huge category. It's slower growth than it had been. It's only about a 5 to 7% CAGR right now. So we're thoughtfully investing. COVID changed the dynamic in terms of the way care is delivered, point of care versus clinical care. So there are tons of white spaces out there, and we're looking for great entrepreneurs to find them.
Alex.
Maybe just to continue on the AI front, I mean, obviously there's some really exciting things going on in the agent space, a lot in diagnostics, particularly applied to imaging or multimodal data sets. And the last one I'd say is particularly interesting to me is just infrastructure types of picks and shovels type play that enable other AI applications to gather data, refine their products, or even on the customer side, like health systems, how do they deploy, monitor AI solutions at scale?
Go ahead, Ella.
I want to say AI in drug discovery especially. So many people know during COVID-19, because of the AI, the drug discovery time was shortened from traditional 5 to 6 years to 1 to 2 years. But also early this month, probably many of you know, FDA just have a new announcement that they are planning to replace animal testing with AI or cell line or organoid to test toxicity for monoclonal antibody sector. So that is definitely the future trend. So we are looking at this sector. It has, with this generative AI, is able to looking at a lot of features, looking at, for instance, affinity, looking at a lot of metabolism, ADMET features, and also to screen billions of the molecule with a shorter period of time. So, and also able to help a lot in clinical trial, for instance, design the clinical side, help to also the patient's recruitment and the biomarker science. And also the drug design is super, super important. And the majority of the drug development fail because the design is not a good one. So the use of the AI able to pull data from all the omics data, from all this public space, that can definitely increase the accuracy rate. So this is a huge potential there.
Yeah, Melody.
Yeah, I want to emphasize automate clinical workflow, and using AI, you can basically provide more accurate clinical documentation tools, and also AI-enabled virtual assistants and triage. So for doctors and hospital systems, clinical accuracy is super, super important, and safety as well.
Are there any areas of AI that people think is really hot, entrepreneurs think it's really hot, but it's really overhyped and not of any interest to you?
Prior authorization.
Pardon?
Prior authorization. I'm really sorry if there's somebody building a prior auth startup. It's not because I don't think it's amazing. I just think it's a super crowded space, and it feels like entrepreneurs that wanted to build an AI automation company jump to prior auth. So I think like what I'm hearing now is a lot of like, we want to build an end-to-end tool, which is fantastic, but that is such a long journey. And what I actually encourage in that case, if you want to build an end-to-end AI tool for the clinical setting, is to actually work with other startups. So it might be that you work with a pre-existing prior authorization company and you focus on the billing, or you focus on diagnostics and integrations with the EHRs. So that's one that I personally am going to place one bet on and just kind of leave it at that.
Okay. F?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much white space here. We've got a company that's utilizing AI in drug development. If you're familiar with CROs, which is clinical research organizations, which support basically the entire ecosystem, right? They're still operating with spreadsheets. I mean, in order to get through some of the FDA clearances, and if you think about it, a CRO operates underneath, in a lot of cases, a existing health tech company. They might be helping them with new therapies, hardware, software, any of those pieces, right? Taking them through testing, trial phases, et cetera. So that whole process is a great process to bring AI to, right? They're using spreadsheets. You can automate it. There's a lot of potential loss there. And, all across the ecosystem, there are lots of different silos to do it. You just have to really understand it, right? We really break it into two categories, right? There's Brave New World, and there's better, faster, cheaper, right? Brave New World's the big, great, crazy idea, and there's better, faster, cheaper, meaning you can make and automate things within the categories. And that's super important because Brave New World takes a lot, and you really have to be super unique. You have to have the capacity to raise tons of capital. This probably isn't your first rodeo, and you've got to be surrounded by, some pretty interesting people to make that happen. But then again, better, faster, cheaper, this could be an existing modification in the automation of a billing system that could quickly pass across the entire industry, and you could end up being far wealthier than the person that was trying bigger, faster, cheaper.
So this is a follow-up to that, F. Where do you see the biggest disconnect between health tech innovation and adoption in the healthcare system?
Well, you just have to understand the ecosystem, right? I mean, you've got a dominant EHR, right, Epic, which pretty much is your top-down environment. So it's trying to poke holes in the different areas. Melody brought up a great one, AI note taker. That was one that didn't have to go through the front door. They were able to a large degree, avoid the HEPA clearance. If anybody went to their PCP and they said, hey, do you mind if I use an AI note taker? That's because they were trying to get a HEPA clearance right there to not integrate. So if you could go on the outside of the system, that's really important. And if you think about it, diagnostics, which is a great example, there are huge diagnostic companies that have tons of AI needs long before they touch a patient's record.
So, yeah, Alex?
I was just going to call out sort of a tie-in between the last two questions, actually. I think an area that I felt maybe a little overhyped is voice AI, in the sense, not that I don't think there will be any successful companies, but the product itself, the voice AI, is sort of a rapidly commoditizing feature, perhaps. The flip is the ones that I think will be successful are the ones that go end to end. It's not a call agent that just covers 90% of cases, but the customer, the provider, then is sort of left to field that 5% of edge cases. So I think it's effectively addressing the solution end to end. That's going to be critical.
Well, you have to be deep. You have to look at deep fakes as well. Sorry, go for it.
No, I just love that we're getting excited about this topic because I'm feeling it too. But I agree with you that voice AI is not very interesting, but not very interesting in the case of like mental health, for example, like the speak to a chatbot about how you're feeling. I personally don't think that's very effective. I haven't seen it be very effective because if somebody's struggling with loneliness, anxiety, depression, they don't want to speak to a chatbot. I did meet a company today that used voice technology in a very interesting way. And it was for non-invasive glucose monitoring. So I think like vocal biomarker technology can be interesting when it's very technical, and then applied to this new and novel thing that nobody else is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a baseline. I mean, utilizing AI voice is almost like a bolt-on now.
And I'll build on a point you just made. You're kind of mentioning the clinical value on the mental health product. That's what really where we take a deep dive is to really understand how does this impact the patient at the end of the day, and tie that to a business model that is easily translatable. So those are part of the equations that we look at when we look at new investments.
So just in terms of there's probably a number of entrepreneurs that have some amazing innovation. What's sort of one piece of advice that you could give them, assuming that it is amazing innovation, one piece of advice in cracking the healthcare system?
Who's going to pay for it? You should start your entire journey with who is going to pay for it, because everything else from that point forward is going to change. Meaning that if the hospital system or a drug company or a diagnostic or imaging company is going to pay for it, you're a B2B company and you're going to go that way. If you're going to try and move into a clinical setting, hospital systems, etc., your customer actually may be EHRs, not hospital systems. So you've really got to think about where you're at, because the way you build your entire organization from a biz dev, from a sales, from even really a tech perspective is going to be super important, right? You've got to think about the word APIs. If you're a piece of software that intends to make an entrance in the clinical setting, if the first thing out of your mouth is an API strategy to getting it to one of the top 2 EHRs out there, that's probably, a big problem. So I think, that's the first one. The second one is, what's your clearance level? What level of a regulated hurdle? And to a large degree, you might be able to avoid that, but there's a value in doing it, and then if you're doing that, what's your pathway? Who's your partners? What area of the FDA do you have to, and when we see an entrepreneur, if they don't have a very strong grasp of these pieces, we'll very politely encourage them to go back and figure that stuff out.
Did you have something else?
Maybe just on Ephraim's first point, who's going to pay for it? I think it's, I often see folks coming from the tech world into healthcare. And one thing that's, I think, fundamentally different is whether you're in B2B SaaS or consumer tech, often the person who's paying for it, the buyer, is the end user. And in healthcare, often that is not the case. So while I totally agree, it's so important to understand who is paying for it. As you're thinking about the value proposition, quantifying ROI, sometimes you have to look through these organizations to understand, who is the buyer, what is the sort of political, structural environment, and who is the end user, and trying to navigate that through a sort of sales process and go-to-market process.
Is there any difference between, tech VCs and health tech VCs in terms of, how they evaluate startups? Melody?
Well, I like to emphasize safety and clinical efficacy. That's the difference that we are seeing, right? Obviously, our roadmap to getting approval is a lot longer than tech. And so you got to kind of work backwards, right? Like figure out who the payer is, go backwards. How do you scale that? And then how do you make it safe? How do you convince doctors, right? Doctors are not always tech savvy. I'm sure you all, in Silicon Valley, you might have a lot of those, but they need to be ramped up. I mean, they don't have time to ramp up. They need to be convinced that what you're doing is accurate, that you can convince them to use your product, right? In the hospital systems, and then you got the efficacy rate, right? We look at minimally 90% efficacy.
Ella?
med tech, it also, so I want to also like follow Melody saying, so definitely the regulation. So in this field has much higher bar compared to other field. So safety or privacy actually is important. So when investor invest company, the first thing they need to check is whether the company does follow the compliance. For instance, what about it does it have the HIPAA compliance or GDPR? So those are the things to look at. And also for the product that need some clinical testing. So that would involve more capital, sometimes longer time or more capital, but also meanwhile can be also the high return. I don't want to compare, for instance, therapeutic, that could be the $2 billion size deal, but for the medical device, it can be also easily sold for quite a good price for the high return or high risk in the field.
I'm glad you brought up the regulatory pathway because, given the the political environment now, it looks like the time to FDA approval may be changing. How important is it, or has it become more important recently, given the political climate that we're in terms of a company's pathway to regulatory clearance?
Yeah, I mean, it has made many health tech drug development entrepreneurs' hair gray over the last 5 years. This all started with the COVID backup, which was a combination of the inability to get clinical trials through with patient base and the FDA being completely focused on COVID. So you had an 18 to 36 month delay around the COVID structure, and this ranged from therapeutics all the way into 510s. And then now you've got a situation where there's been really a sort of, I want to use the word bloodletting, but a decimation of the entire FDA. So you've got entire departments that are gone. Luckily, most of our startups have found someone else. But if you have a primary examiner at the FDA that you've been working with for 18 months and their phone is now dead, you're pretty stressed out as an entrepreneur. And, that really ripples. And so understanding your pathway, having good consultants or good partners that are going to take you through that is mission critical. Because when you come to all of us and you say, I need X million dollars to get this product to market, and then that journey doubles or triples in length, you've got to keep all of your employees paid. You've got to continue that journey all along the way. I mean, we saw in 2023 coming off of COVID, extension of C rounds 18 to 36 months after those were done. Luckily, many of those were at par, but many of those were down rounds. So, not really anticipating a really lengthy and painful journey, could end up being your undoing.
So what advice are you giving to your startups that you've already invested in that are on the regulatory pathway now? What do they do? I mean, you raise a certain amount because you expect a certain runway to get to that next inflection point. What are they doing? What advice are you giving them?
I mean, go, please.
There's really not much deviation from the regulatory pathway that you need to get onto the market that you have to follow depending on what classification you are. So it, as others alluded to, you have to understand the network around that can help guide. If there is an absence in the reviewers that are, historically familiar with your program, you have to know who the next person is. I think there was only one company that said their PDUFA date was missed recently. I've been following that, but the latest commissioner has said that he's going to try to maintain by law the time that is required for a response to be generated. So that's a good sign for the industry that the commissioner sees the importance of having thorough and rapid review.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so recently Venture West, which is a conference here, they do it in a couple places around the country. They have a very large life science health tech category. I think there were 100 entrepreneurs there, and a third of them that were somewhere in FDA cycle are having problems. Either they've slowed down on reviews, their examiner is gone. We're telling our companies to stay in active contact. I mean, literally on a weekly basis. If the person's leaving, get the up-level contact in that environment. If you're using consultants, stand there. I mean, we literally recommended one of our portfolio companies fly to Washington, D.C. recently. There's a lot of grant money that's associated with the health tech space, NSFs, CDC, NIH grants. A lot of that has disappeared. In a lot of cases, it's rippling because members of management teams may work for other other universities, they're actually funded through NSF grants for their day jobs while they're trying to get their startups running, and those are disappearing. So, I think you have to have a real strong 360 view of the space and be aware of any pitfalls that could happen.
And conserve cash and extend runways. That's what I'm hearing.
And even explore other geographies. So if there's another jurisdiction that can review your device, for example, that may be the way to go if you are getting signals that your U.S. pathway is in trouble. There's certain areas that were, of particular cutting focus within the FDA. AI, I believe, had a overlap in some of that. So,
okay,
look at other geographies.
So we talked a lot about what's hot, and I didn't expect the AI bomb to come right out at first. But so what are some of the areas where investors' interest is waning, or that the entrepreneurs think is hot, but it's really not?
Well, platforms. So like a couple years ago, drug development, and you could speak to that, Ella, more than I can, but it was all about platforms, right? You weren't doing a single molecule. You weren't going at a single drug pathway. You were creating platforms in which to create more drugs and branching off that. There's been a huge shift within that model away from that into single molecule, single drug traction. What's interesting about that is in our case, we fund a lot of companies that work around the food chain, whether it's diagnostics, whether it's software and stuff like that. And you've got to be really up on that because that's important. Now, as an entrepreneur, as that global shift happens, it's important for you to know because in a lot of cases, if your customers are those drug companies or are those entrepreneurs or startups, what are they going to need is very important.
A couple that sort of came to mind for me are actually a few that were really hot during COVID and now have sort of cooled off. Things like clinical trial technologies, remote patient monitoring, wearables. Certainly with some exceptions here, even in a sense, value-based care and value-based care enablement. That said, I'm not necessarily calling those out as spaces not to build in today. I think a lot of these are maybe, past their peak hype cycle, now in that trough of disillusionment. But this is also, if that's indeed where they are at and their sort of technology adoption trajectory, this is actually a great time to kind of put your head down and build and, sort of cut out some of the noise from the market.
Melody?
Privacy concerns. So, companies like direct to consumer, I would say genetic testing, right? There's been a lot of those things on the news.
I mean, please.
At-home lab testing, I definitely agree with that. It's interesting because everyone's going to have a different perspective. So if you haven't placed a bet on a company in that space, then maybe you'll be looking at that a little bit more. But direct to home testing, at home monitoring, and the other one I was going to mention is digital therapeutics. I think there was like this huge buzz around digital therapeutics, and it just wasn't getting adoption in the U.S. And I'm looking more to like Germany, the EU, in terms of adoption for digital therapeutic technology, but in terms of digital TX in America, I'm not going to be placing any bets on that space. And yeah.
So I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, you really have to think out of the box. We have an incredibly cool company, and the reason I'll tell you about it. They actually utilize both a capture device. Think of it as a swim cap with lots of great sensors on it, and a tablet with AI on it to diagnose traumatic brain injury. Okay, there are some other companies out there, but the average cost is about $120,000 a unit. These guys have been able to do it under $20,000, and they're aiming it at the concussion market and the military as well. But the concussion market, that market is massive. If you think about it, you think football players, hockey players. Actually, girls soccer, youth soccer from 12 to 18 is the #1 concussion elements out there. Right now, the state of the art is the ability to flash a flashlight into someone's eyes, and on that basis, they determine whether that person needs to go to a hospital, or they can sit it out, whether they can go back in. Imagine the ability to essentially have what was the portable defibrillator, which is now everywhere. There's probably one in this room today, to have that same level of, point of care available for concussions at your local, golf place, your local softball place, your, whether it's your football, hockey, etc. when my daughter is going to be playing high school sports, I hope to God that there is a system like that that can say, does this kid need to get to a CD scanner ASAP, or can you just like give him a Gatorade and let him sit it out? And that is where an entrepreneur really thinks out of the box and realizes that this is, a $30 billion business that no one has figured out.
And that business could grow rapidly if there were more options, therapeutic options available. Can you imagine the day where that diagnostic is part of the therapy, right? If there is a new modality that emerges from that experience where engaging with that device is part of the therapeutic outcome, and that's the the rub is matching these diagnostics with a potential clinical need that is unmet.
Yeah, and they went to market with epilepsy. So their market is taking epilepsy monitoring out of a in-hospital setting and into a clinic or home setting. So they were able to get $2 million in LOIs before and they don't even have their 510. I mean, they're based in Tennessee, so Silicon Valley and all its golden elements. And I will say, Midwest VCs love these kind of deals because it's one of those like beautiful little diamonds that pop out of nowhere. But really, it's an entrepreneur that figured out a new way to attack a huge problem.
So just switching gears a little bit here, beyond the product and the solution, what qualities do you guys look for in health tech teams before making an investment?
A lot of things,
What's
but
most important to you guys?
no, I think like now more than ever, clinical expertise is the most important. And it's interesting. We're talking about, what's happening in the political landscape. And I think if you're in health tech now, it's because you really, really want to be in health tech. And it's not like the sexy thing to do anymore, the way that it kind of was during the pandemic. Anybody that wanted to build a company went and built a health tech company. Generalist investors were investing in healthcare, but they've since pulled back from doing that. So yeah, I think the clinical expertise of not just having a physician on your advisory team that will meet with you like once every 6 months, but actually be like deeply involved in the product feedback from early on is just increasingly important from my perspective.
More than one point of feedback would be just as important. You have one opinion from a clinician. I think you have to try to get to a sample size that can really give you some insights.
Yeah, so I would say several factors are quite important. The team. So for instance, when the founder has some great track record, let's say they have sold a company with X dollar amount with short period of time. So that's definitely a great thing. The CEO itself is very, very important. CEO's role is not just operational. Is really to navigate a strategic direction of the company. So it has ability to help the fundraising, help to recruit the right person, help to build a partnership. So we always say when the startup company doesn't really have the right person, then don't have one until you find the right person. So the team is super important. And also validation. I think before the event, we briefly discussed about that. So validation, when a company bring a really, really great technology without anything, it's just super difficult to make a decision. So validation doesn't have to be the revenue. Or if you have a great revenue or great year-over-year growth, that's a good validation. Or if you have, let's say, get a great endorsement by physician, many physician has users give great comments on that. So this is all the good thing. And also, very often we see company don't really have a great exit strategy. They don't really think about they think it's good. They think about how to sell their product, but they don't think about how to sell the company. So we always hope, for instance, if the company is already collaborating even or conducting pilot trial with some potential buyer, that is a great thing. Exit and also strong IP and also validation is also super, super important. We need also a great price on that.
Does that startup exist? Yeah, F, go ahead. Alex.
Oh, sure. Just back on team, I think it's very much there's certain universal aspects of great teams, and you can look for different things at different stages in companies. But at the earlier stage, unless they've done amazing things in the past, been sort of repeat entrepreneurs with exits. I'm generally focused on, have they demonstrated up to this point, can they build and can they sell? And as we've talked a lot, sometimes these products are not for sale for several years, but sales isn't just about making revenue and selling your product. It's about selling to your future employees, your partners, your investors, hell, maybe even the FDA when it comes time to it. But you've got to be able to build a product or a solution and a vision and sell those to the market. And so I think that's the founder's job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a storyteller.
So I mean, we have 5 pillars that we, really have used for about 25 years now in investing in entrepreneurs. Number 1 is authenticity. So we're looking for authenticity in the entrepreneurs. I know my colleagues have mentioned that. Second is honesty. You'd think that'd be first, but somehow it got to be second. Transparency, conviction, and then tenacity. And those are really the 5 critical pillars. I mean, one could bring that across any startup to a large degree, right? Then we take that and we move that into the next level, which is, 3 legs of the stool, whatever. Product. So you got to understand your product. You got to understand who your customer is. We've talked a lot about payers. We've talked a lot about health systems, drug companies, et cetera here. And then revenue. How are you going to get paid? So, if you can't, figure those 3 pieces out at the onset, you're in challenge. And then, as my colleague said, path to exit. What is the clear path to exit? The joke is you don't enter a tunnel, if you don't see light at the other side, right? If it's not, it's a cave and there's no way out. So I think you really have to think about all those things. And especially in the health tech space, it is almost exclusively an M&A category, right? It's very, unless you're doing therapeutics, drug development, or some, really critical diagnostics, it is almost always M&A. Most of them are tuck-in M&A with billion-dollar companies, whether it's J&J or Boston Scientific or Medtronic, and the list goes on. And they are just buyers. They're so big they can't innovate, which is a huge opportunity for you because your job is to innovate and their job is to buy you. So if you can just get those 2 pieces and collapse that, that's how you get that exit.
Yeah, Melody?
And yes, to the money-making end goal. But in the process, we would like the founder to be very coachable because chances are all of us have had successful exits. We've been operators multiple times. We have been in multiple verticals and we've had our track record. So we like somebody who is able to listen to us. If you want our money, you got to, we can help you scale. And chances are there's a lot of people who know how to do it much better than you can.
I just want to say one more thing about the clinical expertise of not only is it good for your company and your product, but when you are ready to actually sell, who better to help you sell than a clinician? So if you're selling to hospitals, you have the physician on your team be a part of that sales conversation. So I just wanted to add that in.
I just wanted to pick up on something you said, Ella. You were mentioning, just because somebody's got a KOL or they got, someone stellar on the advisory board, that doesn't make them imminently investable. But how important is an SAB, KOLs, advisors? How do you put any weight on that when you go look at the company? Alex, Ella?
Not much, except to the degree that it's somewhat evidence of those founders' ability to sell their vision and recruit them. That said, there's many different flavors of advisors and many different sort of levels of involvement and commitment. And so I think, as you're progressing through due diligence, if you get a feel for the actual contributions of those individuals, both up until this point and expected sort of roles moving forward, I think that's an important aspect.
So for us, when we look at the advisor page, you always see like a lot of big names. So we always ask, what's their involvement really in the company? For instance, is this whether the technology is coming from one of the Nobel Prize laureates, like as advisor, or any physician as advisor meet with company on a bi-weekly basis? That's super important. And one, I want to say a big reason for device company to fail, one of the reason is it doesn't really do great job for the customer market fit. So it has spent a lot of money, spent a lot of time on the product development before letting physicians to actively involve that. So we really like the team. So for instance, one of the company we invest in, they have the physician teams that have been using their tools for a long time and participated in design and have the bi-weekly meeting all the time. So this is a really great sign for them.
Let me just mention, we're a little different than Alex. We love the advisor page. We go there, and that serves as a rich source of diligence. So really, you can get most of our team, clinicians and scientists. So we're kind of viewed as colleagues and partners with these other clinician scientists. So we really go deep on understanding, if product profile X does come to the market, what are the competitive forces? How many patients would you put on the product? And you really get that honest feedback that isn't necessarily in sell mode. So that's the other thing that really is helpful for us to understand the risks.
I guess it does bring a certain level of validation.
Well,
right?
it
If
depends
some-
on your stage, because that's
Right.
what we're seeing here. Alex is a later stage. There are, you just had early, mid, late, all in one little bucket there telling you how it works. I mean, when you're in early stage and we're making the evaluation, we want a ton of clinicians on there because that's our validation points. I mean, as you as an entrepreneur, I would actually encourage you to do it for yet another reason. I'd love it if they would meet with people like Ella would, like every 2 weeks. Like usually if you just see them once a quarter, you're stoked. But at the end of the day, what it does is opens your door to be able to get your product into ideally hospital systems, educational institutions. And moreover than that, there are now there are loopholes. Like we've had the ability to have our companies take advantage of loopholes that are associated with getting product and paying customers before you're through FDA. There's something called compassionate care. And if you've got a great product that's clinically viable and it really moves the needle for people, you can do a compassionate care exemption and get up to 1,000 people at each location working through that product. So there are lots of ways to do it. And, I think to Garrett's point is like, if we're going to call them and say, hey, would you use this? Do you love this? Why do you care? Now, if they're later stage and they got 10 million in revenue, we're asking different questions. So.
Sorry, just to add, I agree. I think it's worthwhile having those conversations. So I'm not disagreeing, but I take umbrage at the idea that these are independent, perspectives, right? I think you should take those calls. You should get to know the advisors, their perspectives on the product, the market, what the customers are going to feel, but also find your own independent, advisors or clinicians who don't have an equity stake in, the company or you putting money in the company.
It helps with our diligence process in the sense that if there's an advisor or a board member and we know them, I will reach out to them. I've seen advisors that are actually our portfolio company. So I'll just talk to them directly and ask them their perspective and how involved they are and go directly to the source. And I think it also matters whether they're investing capital or not. So if it's the chief AI scientist at Google that's an advisor to your company, I know he's not going to have time to spend with you. But if they're putting capital into your company, to me, that's a great signal that they really believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think you have to separate some pieces here. We call it a clinical advisory board, and I think that's what part of the conversation is. Then there's sort of the broader advisory board, right, where there might be dollars. Clinical advisory boards usually can take no incentive. They're usually just cheerleaders inside the health system for you, and those are great. I mean, we've had clinical advisory boards, and if you can get them on board across the country, we had one company that had Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, all the way down, Columbia Press, Stanford, all over. And at the end of the day, they were able to leverage all of those opportunities. Or the company I was talking about with the concussions, they've got at 3 or 4 different major neurology clinics, clinical advisors there that advise them on their product, and they were the first LOIs the company got because they were so bought in. They knew the product inside and out. As they said, it's almost like I got to have a hand in building the product I'm going to use every day. So there's a lot to be said. I think Ella was bringing that up. So I would put that out there as well.
Yeah, just the one thing that I always caution clients on, if you're bringing people onto the SAB or the advisory board and giving them options, when it comes time to open the door, they're probably going to have to recuse themselves. And so, your biggest champion may not be able to champion you.
Or it's your champion without getting that incentive.
Yeah.
And in this case, with this company, they couldn't do that. But they got their hands into the mix, so to speak, and got to build a product they like. So it's very helpful.
So besides not being honest, authentic, tenacious, what are the biggest mistakes? What are the biggest mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making in the fundraising process?
I mean, not knowing who they're going to. I mean, targeting us is as important as anything else, number one. Number two, going direct is, yeah, you might get through. I've got a great, we have a great associate team. They will vet every deal just because they're like insane and FOMO driven. But in most cases, it's someone like you who are going to make the intro. And, we're going to look at who's their counsel. Go get a great counsel, because if I get a ping, that's the email I'm going to open. Now, I feel guilty if I don't respond to his client. And, it's like a whole life cycle. He knows that he's not going to send me some garbage and, where I won't open the next one. I know if I don't open it, he'll not send me the next one. I'll never get invited to one of these things again. And it's just, that's how you want to do it. So find great, sort of service providers, advisors in that way that can open doors, to the point, board members, etc.
Yeah, I think, clients sometimes get upset because they say, send me here, send me there. And I go, you know what? That's my credibility. I don't think you're ready. I don't think at the right stage. And even if you don't invest in my clients, I want you to say, you know what? It wasn't for me, but I'm glad he sent it to me.
And
that's
if it's a good deal, I say it's not for me, but I'm going to send it on to so-and-so, and that's it. Yeah, for sure.
Ella?
Yeah, so I agree. So so before startup a company reach to investor, they really need to first do their own due diligence regarding the investor. Each VC has their different investment strategy. Regarding stages, the check size, what indication, it's all different. And also due diligence on themselves, whether they are in the stage to fundraising and how much they really need. So that is super important. Also, another thing I see quite common for the company is the deck are not prepared thoroughly. So as an investor, we see so many decks all the time. So there's some highlight always catch our eyes. So for instance, if you have some great number, the number can be year-over-year growth, can be some revenue or some track record before put out there. The company put your differentiator. So only the problem solving with a pain point doesn't really tell the story. Why you are different among so many other players on the same space? What is your highlight? And also, one thing I mentioned before, I don't really see this frequent enough is common enough is the exit strategy. So very often we want to understand that who can be your potential buyer, because very often the industry, there are not so many buyers out there, and whether you already have something going on or whether you are thinking about exit, that is also super important. So you really need to prepare your deck, spend good time on that before you reach out to investors.
What's the biggest mistake you see entrepreneurs making in the deck? Too much time on the problem, not enough time on the solution. What's the biggest mistake?
As I said, they don't really put their highlight in the strengthen the highlight enough. So very often I see the company that I don't really see that until I talk with company and find out, wow, you are really good. Why you don't really highlight this in your deck? So this is something I see.
Nobel laureates lead with that, right? Not buried in the team slide at the back.
I'll tell you one pet peeve of mine where the ask doesn't correlate to the milestones that increase equity value or de-risk the program. So 2 years of runway, that's not interesting to me. What does that mean? What are you going to accomplish in those 2 years that changes the profile of the company and is able to attract strategics or further investment?
I think one of the things that I'm always challenging my entrepreneurs on is understanding the model. And especially when they pay people to put a model together. I mean, if you go out on a pitch, and I've had a VC tell me the reason I didn't invest in your client was I said, hey, what's that number in that cell? And the entrepreneur said, great question. I'll talk to the people that put the model together and I'll get back to you. He's like, he was dead from there on out because I have no confidence in someone that doesn't understand the financial metrics.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the first thing, back to those pillars I was talking about, you've got to be honest in your deck. You've got to be authentic in your deck. You've got to be knowledgeable in your deck. Other little pet peeves, page numbers. Make sure you have page numbers on all your decks. Great graphics are lovely. Information is way more important. Salient points. VCs can't digest more than 3 to a maximum of 5 data points on any slide. So what we call a word wall is not very helpful. Lots of great graphics are meaningful, but they have to actually mean something, and you have to be getting a point across. And, I think to a large degree, you've got to be able to square the math. And you've got to understand, I hate it when people say it, and I'm the last guy to say it, but you've got to understand your market. TAMs and SAMs and everything else, we see entrepreneurs come in, it's a $500 billion market, and we're like, well, yeah, but it's $800 million max in your space, and that's a non-starter. So you really have got to understand that. And if you do, you'll find your own problems first and fix them.
Okay.
One last thing, yeah.
Yeah.
10 seconds. So we're all very data-driven people, so you got to understand not just the numbers, but you got to know how to sell. So your pitch deck has to sell very well to us too. So emphasize the highlights, like don't undersell yourself and don't oversell yourself. You got to be transparent because we can see through that right away. We'll ask all the right questions, so you can't really, just say what's important, and then we'll cover the rest.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. But I always like to end off with this one question. What are the 3 most important questions, or if you have less, feel free to give me less, that an entrepreneur should ask the investor before taking the money? Let's start with you, Alex.
What is your current fund and where are you in its cycle? Based on what I've told you so far about my company and your kind of top concerns, what would be your number 1 priority post-close? And can you provide references from CEOs you've worked with in the past?
I would just say they're never going to give you someone whose company that tanks, right? So go onto the website, look at the portfolio companies, pick 5, 6 companies, ping those CEOs and say, hey, when 2020 happened, what was the response of the VC?
Don't get out of the lines. You won't get the check. No. Ask it straight up, but don't get squirrely with that kind of thing. I mean, it sits badly because the minute that you as an entrepreneur start sort of acting in any kind of sketchy manner, not that that's sketchy, but
that's sketchy. I mean, if you're doing diligence, you guys
then ask straight up, and then get the approval to call people. Don't do it arbitrarily.
Agree. I agree with that. Including if you so desire, entrepreneurs where the investment didn't work out. But I agree. I would ask. I wouldn't just take your hustle and go to back end. That's probably going to backfire.
So the first thing is, of course, the investment strategy. What stage you invest, or what is your investment area? And the second thing is how you're gonna help me after you put the money. So are you gonna, for instance, participate in the next round of fundraising? You're gonna introduce other investors to us. You're gonna help us to commercialize or engage more customers. So that's the second question regarding their role. And the third one is how they are going to participate in the company management. For instance, do you want any board seat, or do you want to be the active investor, or you prefer to be the passive investor? So those are the quite critical questions.
I'll turn it on its head a little bit. I've been an entrepreneur 3 times as well, and usually VCs are very fluid in giving you advice. But I think one thing that would be interesting to see how the person across from you is thinking is, if you were in my shoes, where would you take this company? Get it from that perspective. Have them try to empathize with you, and you can get a lot of information as to if they've bought into your vision, if they've bought into your market, into your product solution. So I think that would be a helpful way to know, is this VC engaged or not?
What do you think the most important thing to ensure that there's alignment on between entrepreneur and investor?
If they've given it a lot of thought. I think really if they I think that actually gives you as an entrepreneur a chance to test how good their market knowledge is. How many nodes of network do they have that can ultimately help you? that knowledge should come through in that discussion.
And also whether they ask the right question during the due diligence process, you would know.
Actually, I heard something that was probably the most interesting thing I've heard just now from you guys on a panel in a long time, which is asking what they're expecting to a degree, because so much of the alignment with the investor is what they believe you're supposed to be doing. And what's super interesting is, in our minds, when we're writing that check, we think you're going to get bought by McKesson or Squibb or someone else, right? And so deviating from that course, whether you know it or not, as an entrepreneur, is going to cause a lot of friction. So understanding how we view your trajectory is really important. And then as an entrepreneur, you need to manage us. Just like, we are now a parent, right? You've got to manage it. If you're a great kid and you could sneak out and get back in and no one ever noticed, great. But you also had to get A's, because we expect A's. We expect captain of the football, soccer, whatever team, and we expect you to get into a top university all at the same time.
Okay, I know it's the end, but
My 3 questions. So one of them I've bucketed as strategy, which is like very standard. Like, what's your check size? What valuations do you look at? Do you invest in biotech? If it's a no and you're a biotech company, then we just end the conversation there. Save us both time. The other one is, are you familiar with X? Because oftentimes I'm already familiar with the problem that you're working on. If it's a disease, if it's women's health, or it's cardiovascular, I'm familiar with it. So we can also save each other time and just kind of breeze through the problem. And the next one is, have you invested in X? So if I just invested in 3 oncology AI companies, then it's unlikely then we're going to make another investment.
I think that's, from my perspective, I see so many entrepreneurs wasting so much time going after the wrong investor. And, time as an entrepreneur is so precious. Doing your homework, making sure you've got the right investor is so important. What are the 3 things that you wish people would ask you?
Oh, well, I think that my colleagues did a great job. I mean, I think that they should ask, what are my expectations? What do I think this is going to be when you grow up? I think it's super important. I think you should ask for references. Let's talk to entrepreneur, ask for other entrepreneur references. Most of us will give it to you, both good and bad, obviously filtered. And then the last piece is really, to an earlier point from a colleague around life cycle, but really understanding what their pro rata commitment is. And if you guys don't know that term, your trusted lawyer will teach you in Hunter S. Thompson style. And what that means is how much they're prepared to continue writing checks for. Could they co-lead? Are they going to hustle you money? That is the number one thing, honestly, you want out of an investor, is their ability to help you get your next round done. Beyond just advice, but really that's, everybody can give you advice. There are lots of us out there that have had great exits, but are they going to hustle? Are they going to roll up their sleeves? Because I'll probably hit everybody on this panel with a deck from one of my companies within 3 to 5 business days.
Melody?
So I feel like when you're pitching to investors, it's almost harder than getting into a college like MIT, which is like 4% admission rate now. So with that in mind, I really appreciate, we say no's way more than we say yeses for sure. So I appreciate entrepreneurs asking what feedback we have for them, because we really do like to see you succeed. And while we can't write you a check for XYZ reasons, we would love to see you succeed. So please ask those questions on how you can do differently.
Panel, thank you so much for your time, and thank you on behalf of everybody here. Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, panel, you exceeded expectations. The time limit was exceeded a little bit, but that's on the moderator. But it's okay. It's good. All good. How can audience members contact you, Alex? Do you want to be contacted?
Sure. My email is on my firm's website. So, best bet.
Ella?
You can find my contact in LinkedIn. I check my LinkedIn all the time.
Garrett?
Same with LinkedIn. I apologize. We were looking forward to answering some of your questions, so apologize that we didn't get to that.
The questions are coming out. Half an hour. Blame it on the moderators. The moderator's got to work on his moderating a bit. Aya?
I already see the LinkedIn pings coming in, so that's one way. And we have 800 people on our team, so I will get you in contact with the right person.
Yeah, right on our website. Don't send it to me. I'm not the first guy who's going to review it.
So if you want to send me a LinkedIn request, write a message saying that we met tonight, and I get 100 requests a day, but I promise you I will read them and accept your invite.
Roger, you want to be contacted?
Sure, you go to Snell and Wilmer. I look at my name. You'll see the email there.
Well, Roger will be probably contacting you guys.
Actually, let me add to that. The best way to get to us is actually hire Roger, get him to send the deck to us, because then we'll probably have to open it.
It's turning into an infomercial.
Guilt. It's the guilt open.
All right, so now it's time for audience Q&A. So if you have a question for our panel, step right up. We have a mic stand here. We'll form a line. It's not a pitch event, so do not deliver pitch or a thinly disguised pitch. If you deliver a pitch or a thinly disguised pitch, you'll have to deal with Melissa, who's our mouse. First question.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarek. I'm a serial founder with the Exit in Health Tech, now building a new company. So my question is related to the current economy and what is happening. And I know there is right now fundraising not only for startups but also for VCs. So you have to raise capital from LPs. So I wanted to ask, like, what is the state right now of the fundraising for your firms, and as well, like, how to. I mean, I know there's like many VCs, they don't have like dry powder right now to invest, and how to pretty much, like, any advice you can give us for us, for founders, how to figure out which VCs really have money, which one does not. I mean, even though I checked the pitch book, it doesn't really show the real picture if VCs really have money in their bank account. Thank you.
So I was looking at the CB Insights report. It looks like there is a big spike in investments this quarter compared to the previous quarter. So hopefully that's a good signal that there will be some more, you could say dry powder to put into companies. It's always going to be extremely difficult. It's never going to be easy. So his advice earlier was, when you build your company, the first thing you should think about is, who's my customer? Maybe I'm a little harsh, but I don't think you should build a company until you have a customer and an investor ready to put capital into the company, because it's just that competitive and that difficult. But that's my feedback. I think the CB Insights reports are good, actually, to just show the trends of, what it is compared to the previous quarters, and it looks like it's an upward from the Q4 of last year.
Announcements, if they've done recent deals, that's a good sign that they have capability to participate in rounds.
Yeah, sometimes fund cycles can vary a lot, right? During sort of like 2020, 21, some of these funds were like raising and deploying a new fund in a year or two. But generally, if you can't tell that like a fund, if their last fund was like more than 4 years ago and they haven't announced, I mean, they could be fundraising, as you sort of suggested. It's a pretty tough market out there for VCs fundraising from LPs, in part due to the lack of liquidity. It also depends on whether or not you have a track record and have generated, distributions.
Yeah, I mean, I would spend a whole lot less time worrying about your venture market, because I think there's just a wilderness of VCs. When I was an entrepreneur, you could count them on hands. Today, you need AI to count them. So I would spend a whole lot less time worrying about, could this person really write the check? Because at the end of the day, if you have good service providers, good lawyers, good networks, good events, you're going to find them. So like a lot of wasted energy there.
Thank you for such a wonderful talk by all of you. I'm Sargam Kaur Arora. My question is very general. How are you balancing investment between breakthrough technologies or near-term commercialization products in the current market?
Hopefully they're the same thing. That's the ideal scenario, usually not the case. I think, we're an early stage fund, so we're much more focused on more of the breakthrough potential, and recognizing that the journey is going to be, ahead of us.
I'm not sure that there's as much of a strategy there as it is as much sector focus for a lot of us. I mean, we all have our own distinct thesis. We're a barbell fund. We put money into late stage deals with our very big fund buddies, and then we also do very early stage deals with that, that are these breakthroughs. I will say that we are kind of an early exit fund. That's why we don't do drug development. We don't do 13-year deals. I mean, like I said earlier on, we're looking for what's your exit. If you don't often know who your buyer is when you come to see us, then maybe you don't know your market. And then you're also looking for us to say, oh, wait, yeah, I do know 5 people at GSK that would totally buy this for XYZ department. So keep that in mind.
What's the horizon? 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 10?
Reality is like these days without the IPO window open, because that just jams up everything else.
Yeah.
It's like 7 to 10. I mean, I've got deals from Fund 3 that are still out there.
Great question. Thank you.
You had something to say. I was going to clarify. When you say breakthrough, do you mean like moonshots?
Like novel technology, novel biotech participants, like
As opposed to something that's out there on the market or
update of a drug or update of a device. You have more buy-in on that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify. I might not be the best person to answer the question, but I could say, like, for me, if it's something that is not been done before, then I need to de-risk it in other ways, which means I would probably weigh a lot more heavily on the team and the traction. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name's Ahmed. Question for you guys. So I think that general kind of tech investment tends to be, from a venture perspective, we're looking for that 7 to 10x return. Traditional med device, the boring stuff, the catheters out there, these devices are still the ones that big players are buying. So unless you're going IPO for something crazy, breakthrough, like a larger, like an iRhythm or something like that, you're generally going to be acquired by a Boston, by a J&J, one of these guys. Is the technology you see coming through for youth and for investments usually aligned with their acquisition portfolio, or is it ahead? I thought there's some level of like J&J may say, cool, you found a way to make my catheter irrelevant. Okay, well, why would I buy you? Let me kind of like keep milking this cow until then. So I don't know. I guess there's that balance of which is like, is the legacy stuff still hot and maybe we don't see it, or is it slowing down?
It depends. It's a great place to be, and I think when I talk about understanding your market, that's what you need to understand. If you're a catheter group, I mean, PE has like rolled up a bunch of catheter people. I mean, there's still like a lot of it's offshored, it's onshore now. Really knowing that market is super awesome because most of those companies, if they can squeeze, another drop or two out of the lemon by getting a new product, and they can, essentially in the M&A department, they're doing baseline math, right? If they buy you for $20 million, are they going to go squeeze out 200 over the next 3 years with that because they've got the channel and the buyer and all that? That makes total sense. And, that's where staging is so important, especially in health tech like that. Don't go take $30 million because you're not going to get bought for $30 million. Go squeeze it out on 6 and deliver everybody a killer return, especially you.
Yeah. There are many more deals done, sub 100 million, sub 50 million exits. And so you right size your investment ask, again, to the milestones, but with the understanding that, with the baked in return multiple, that's the targeted return multiple, your valuations are going to be in line with, that type of equation. So
There is a quick follow as to what's your question, but kind of to your back to your question of, this idea of like quicker, faster, better versus like quicker, better, faster versus a breakthrough. If that equation is like, look, there's a 3-year window I have here, I could solve this problem using this traditional method, maybe a new mousetrap versus this kind of complete moonshot. I know this is a big picture question.
Yeah, let me give you an analogy. So I was talking about this company that built sort of a sensing cap AI device. So they started as fulfilling this epilepsy problem, which is a great problem. I mean, there are 3 million people in the U.S. with epilepsy. They're going to, if they do this, they'll probably get bought by Medtronic for $30 million, right? That's where they were going. We all were on the same team. That was like all, FDA, approval comes in this summer. We're all stoked, $2 million in revenue the next year, M&A discussion starts, right? Then it was actually the board were like, hey, would this work for concussions? And actually it was TBI through my contacts in the military that like, can I send that to a forward operating base? Because TBI is the number one thing that they're seeing today. And I said, let me check. And then it just rolled into that and now is becoming a moonshot by default. But, you know, worst case scenario, they're going to get bought for 30 to 50. You know, that's a good place to be, that like your failure mode is $30 to $50 million acquisition.
So shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
No, have a real business and then show us you can reach for the stars.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name's Lauren Nashir. I know you addressed how the current administration's policies with grants and funding have really affected the biotech sphere. How is that affecting your investment strategy for new companies coming to you?
One thing is grants are great, but you can just rely on them a lot less these days. Even if they've been sort of granted, like unless the money's in the bank, you know, it's great that companies have been able to sort of win them, and it's sometimes good to have a grant writing process, but you should just generally, I think most of us are probably undercutting the size and timing of a lot of those sort of funding sources.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add on, just expect everything to take longer. So if you have a, you know, a product that's going to go through an FDA or similar cycle, it's going to take, instead of 18 months, you know, budget 36. And if you end up at 30, you're a winner. And if you didn't run out of money, you're a winner. But if you run out of money, you're dead. So think about it that way.
We still encourage our companies to pursue non-dilutive financing any way that they can. I would say most of our early stage companies have previous grants, and we were very nervous and still are that for whatever rules that may change those it's not money in the bank. Actually, you have to spend it and then you get reimbursed most of the time. So it's you know, you're at risk for a period of time. Either way, we're still requesting our companies to navigate, understand the nodes again, where the RFPs coming from, and apply as much as they can.
And think out of the box. One of our companies, which is jammed up in FDA right now, just went to the military. They've got a contract coming through SBRs and TAC-FIs with the military. These are grants, and the military is jamming their stuff through the FDA. Like someone called someone, and they got a call back the next day. So there are a lot of ways to upend the system if you know how to do it.
And also what it has impacted is not only the company that were planning to apply for the funding, but also for the company that already got the funding but haven't received the full treatment. So we're quite nervous for that. And also for the very early stage company before that, we know the company in the very, very early stage, it's difficult for them to get support from the VC money. So a lot of money are coming from the non-dilutive funding. So nowadays, when we look at the company with the pipeline with a greater potential, greater technology, then we were a little worried if they don't really have the ability or the channel to get, let's say, the family office support or get some, dilutive funding, then we're worried that they probably won't really have enough. They don't have the ability to survive or to continue their research.
And just a quick yes or no. Are you noticing LPs not wanting to give money because of the interest rates and the current grant situation?
So we're fundraising for Fund 2, and a few that we were in discussions with a few LPs from Canada said we're going to take a pause for now. And then others said they wanted to see how HHS and FDA played out, putting a pause for a period of time. That was a impact.
Yeah, the perspective is interest rates are going down, which is actually helpful for us to getting LPs. Market turmoil like this, when you've been on like this 18 to 24 month market just run up, you didn't really have to do anything and you made a lot of money. And if you even took your capital, you just put it in the bank, you made a lot of money. That's not good for us. We're on the other side. We want, hey, stock market's kind of risky. Maybe you're getting 7-8 points. You're getting 3 points or more on your treasuries. Okay, you're going to take that. But at the end of the day, we you think about the investment sort of wheel, we're in what they call the alternative investment category, which usually represents 3% of a family office or larger entities. So we duke it out with people like private equity, often crypto investing, hedge funds, etc. So it really is dependent upon your return levels as much as anything else, and the market's kind of becoming problematic.
We're seeing pauses as well among LPs as we're still actively fundraising. And but a pause is a pause, and the no doesn't always mean a no. The other thing is that our relationship still keeps going and is still growing, so that doesn't change, right? Because when the timing is right, they're going to go to you first. So likewise with entrepreneurs, right? Keep that relationship going.
I do want to stress Melody's point. VCs do want to stay in the loop, and you should take that opportunity to apprise them of your progress. So very much, keep that relationship going. That improves your chances.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Sorel Anyaha, owner of Sorel Properties Incorporated. I have a question for anyone on the panel to actually, maybe tackle. But it's more addressed to what Alex said earlier about AI infrastructure and possible, AI solutions, scalability. And so I have 3 questions. For health tech VCs, how do you evaluate cross-sector opportunities? I'm developing an app. It's still in progress. It's called BOAT, Autonomous Navigation System, called BANS for short. Where tech solves infrastructure challenges with public health benefits, where it reduces emissions and stress. That's the first question. And then what metrics do you want to see in a pre-revenue mobility startup to justify seed funding? And then the last one is how critical are government partnership, therefore SBA grants, in your investment decisions?
Let me just get this straight. You're asking us about a clean tech mobility app? Just making sure.
So the tech is incorporated with the existing system of LiDAR. So you have.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
No, but big picture, sector focus.
Yeah.
No organs in there anywhere, right? No.
None.
Hospitals.
Whatsoever. No.
No.
So
Doctors.
So what I'm trying to say
They might
here,
drive.
What I'm trying to say here is the port waterways is not being utilized. 90%.
You're talking to health tech VCs. The only waterways we're thinking are like veins and catheters, and
there's a transportation aspect of it. So if you have an EMT, that
we invest in your category. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So that's why I'm kind of like throwing that question about infrastructure. Nobody ever really talks about infrastructure and how to utilize it, or to its full capacity.
I hear you. I think to your first question about sort of cross industry sort of technologies, I think unless someone you're sort of like lucky and they already understand like the pain points of how different sorts of stakeholders are navigating our ports, you kind of need to get lucky with someone who knows both sides of that those 2 different markets, or perhaps you can educate them if they're like pretty crisp in like the transport, logistics, real built world market.
Yeah, I was gonna refer you. You want to take you on?
I was just gonna say I'm lucky because I have a lot of colleagues on my team that have different expertise. So I have a full team on mobility, a full team on supply chain, a full team on sustainability. So I work with them. But when there is a technology that has applications to multiple industries, I usually see it as a good thing as long as the entrepreneur is very focused in which markets they're going after first. But if this is more of like and in chapter 3 of our company, we'll be able to go after the agriculture market, then I see it as a positive thing.
Yeah, so what all I was trying to get to is wrong group of people, good idea. So mobility is great. There's a whole bunch of VCs that invest in your category. We invested in your category. We had a company called Land Sonar. We sold it to Triangle Software. It was a really great exit. Triangle today is inside of UPS Logistics. So there's a bunch of route routing software. A lot of it's AI driven already. I would encourage you to go deep in that. When you get into ports and so on, that's governed by different laws, including international maritime. That's a whole different bucket. So like you're kind of on your own. Ports are actually governed in waterways by different people. So I would encourage you to like just check out the routing software and your customer. We invest in things like that. We just looked at a company that does like pool service, believe it or not. I mean, Warren Buffett's only major private investment this year. And they're doing, and a big part of their business is pool routing. So it's routing those people that come to, fix your pool, because they don't do that, and it saves them a lot of money. So that's one piece of their business. So routing is still cool.
Thank you. And will it be okay if I send you my pitch deck, Alex?
Sure, but I'm pretty sure it might be out of scope. I think
Really, like, for you, time is your most precious commodity. Like, these are not your target investors, So you should be optimizing for your time,
Hi, my name is Arkady, company called BioTracers. We develop diagnostics for sepsis and antibiotic resistance. My question is about the FDA. There was a discussion about the turmoil at the FDA and unpredictability. So my question is, in view of that, if a company pitching to you decides that they're going to go for a regulated market outside of the US first, or they decide to go for an unregulated application, both of those, on one hand, are lowering the risk, but on the other hand, reducing the amount of money you can make with the product. Do you see that as more positive or more negative strategic move?
I'm happy to take a stab at that. I think anytime you can bring clinical data to the investment discussion, you're gonna help your cause. So if you get data outside the U.S. in an unregulated market, but it's clean and it's properly presented, I think that is a noble effort to pursue if your obstacles to doing a traditional venture round in the U.S. are too great at this moment.
I agree on that. So, for instance, in China, India, or South America, you can find a lot of places to do the IIT, investigator-initiated trial. So that means you don't really need approval from local FDA to do clinical trial in local hospital. You only need the approval from the hospital per se. So you'll be able to get a patient's data really quick. Maybe $1 million, you would be able to get 10 patients' data within maybe 2 or 3 months. So that's really quick. So of course, for this data, you cannot bring to apply for the FDA approval here. But during the fundraising is super, super, super important. It definitely worth better regarding the value better than the animal data or some in silicon data. So if you have the resources, I would say definitely just do it.
I mean, so if you have a real good strategy there, then it does make sense, right? If you're going to do anything, you've got to make sure the economics work, because the economics in other parts of the world just don't make sense than they do here. Going for EU cert can make sense. Our recommendation, if you're going to go there, is do it in Spain. And oftentimes, actually, it's cheapest to do it in France. And the Spanish will usually roll and let you kind of, rubber stamp it. The upside is LATAM's a big market, right? Otherwise, Europe is useless. I mean, no offense. I mean, one, it's national health systems. Your cost to just translate everything and all your materials for every little country there is just stupid. So at the end of the day, Russia's not a market. India, you have to work at 1/100th the cost. We don't even consider China viable at this point. So, in my opinion, it's either Europe with an English play, which is kind of thin, or just going directly at LATAM. And we're seeing some of that. We're seeing the end around going through Spain into LATAM.
If I could provide, Arkady, is that?
Yes.
I have a pretty good specific example for you. Oh, I think I just made an unfortunate pun. You may be familiar with a company called Specific Diagnostics in the AST and ID space.
Yes.
So there's a portfolio company of ours, and the reason I bring it up is obviously they're in a very similar space. They actually we're jointly pursuing U.S. and EMA approvals. They actually got approved first in Europe, and they partnered with bioMérieux, big French strategic in this space, to distribute in Europe. So they were actually working on that partnership, and then they just got the FDA approval. This was about 2 years ago in the U.S., and bioMérieux bought them for $425 million up front with basically no commercial revenue. So I think that's a pretty relevant sort of case where they partnered with the strategic that had a big base distribution advantages in Europe and, provide them an inside.
All right, we got time for one last question. All right, make it a good one.
Thank you, everyone, all the panelists. This was a very interesting conversation here. My name is Preeti Dugar, everyone, and I run a software company called BlinkPad. We are a marketplace for healthcare, and we help a number of startups, healthcare institutions for crowdsourcing connections for businesses, for investor connections, and for candidate connections, whether they're looking for microscopic photography or whatever, doctors, nurses. My question for you, because I do work with investor connections and I work with a number of investors, most of these conversations when we have panel like this is talking all about startups and what startups are looking for. I'm very curious, what is your biggest challenge as an investor? Because when we work with hospitals and doctors, we look at patient side of the story, but we never understand what the background, what is going on in a hospital system. So I'm very curious, what is happening in your work, in your business, in your lives, as you run as investment firms? Is it you're raising capital? Is it sourcing startups? Is it cross connections with investor to investor relationships? What is your biggest challenge?
So this is it. So every day we wake up, 5 companies are doing great, 5 are doing okay, and 5 are in trouble. Then the next day, they all change places. And that's basically how our day works. And then someone who gave us money calls, and you have to explain how come the one you told them yesterday was not doing well is now doing great. So that's pretty much how it works for us.
Look at new opportunities too.
Oh, yeah, you throw it in. You got to look at 5 new deals because you got to replace the one on the bad one that's bad for like 5 days in a row.
Yeah, I mean, joking aside, it's to try to maximize the value of your current investments first and foremost in service of your limited partners. So I'm on the board of 6 companies. That takes up 60% of my time. The rest of that is split between LP outreach and new opportunity assessment. Speaking to other venture investors, speaking to strategics, the list is endless, and the key is to prioritize the most important parts first.
Yeah, I agree with bandwidth. There's just too much to do in terms of supporting the existing portfolio, getting a stronger portfolio of new investments, raising the capital, deploying the capital into the right companies, building the relationships with other funds, building the relationships with the potential clients for the startups so that you can help them scale. So and then making sure that, you're getting your brand out there. So going to the right conferences, speaking at the right panels, relationship building is such a big part of the business. So bandwidth.
So an old VC in the Valley once used this great analogy. It's like you had to go out and you'd had to hunt the animal. Then you'd have to take the animal and domesticate it and raise it, then kill it, cook it, eat it. And then, at that dinner table is the only moment you can enjoy the experience. So that's really it, is if we are the life cycle. I mean, we're there when the child is born, and we're there, to shovel the last thing half the time. So it's pretty broad-based.
It's an interesting analogy. Thank you so much.
Sorry about the animal thing. I mean, we could have used a plant.
Great. Well, thank you.
Right, well, let's give it up for our panel. So now it's time for our raffle drawing. First prize is $50 of See's candy. Melody, you want to do the honors?
No. Sounds good. All right.
And the winner is...
Okay. Lee Wen Lee?
Gone once, gone twice.
Oh,
on down.
Leland, congratulations. Come up.
Come on down.
And what did she win?
Come on down. Up. Come up.
A $25 gift certificate.
All right, you got funded tonight.
That's the C's candy. $50 of C's
Seed
candy.
candy. Share some.
Take a photo with Yana. So the next raffle item is the $25 gift card. So someone here will get funded tonight to the tune of $25. So this is courtesy of Atadon. Ephraim, you want to do the honors?
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay. Use the mic.
Let's see.
Use the mic. I'm talking to you about it.
Okay, I have it. So this is Miss Carol Wong.
Carol, come on down. Look.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Well, someone's got funding tonight. So who says you can't get funded at an Idea to IPO event?
Exactly.
So let's give it up again for our panel. Let's give it up for Roger, our awesome moderator. Let's give it up for all our sponsors. Let's give it up for our event team and our video team. Let's give it up for Melissa, our bouncer.
Let's hear it for Rob.
Melissa wants to say something.
We also wanted to congratulate Idea to IPO on 15-year anniversary and happy 29th birthday to Gregory. So we're all going to sing happy birthday together. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Irene. Happy birthday to you.
So Gregory, how does it feel to be 29?
Oh, that's a good number because it's my 9th startup that I'm involved in right now, and 2 previous ones went IPO.
All right, so normally I would say we have 3 choices for the after party: the Rosewood, the patio, or Pizza My Heart. However, because we have special permission from Roger and Snell and Wilmer to hold our after party here, we can stay all night. We have cake, ice cream, so enjoy the after party. Thanks for coming. Bye.